Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Now, the data is in, and according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. economy and job market has added 1.22 million jobs. And you guys, that's 1.22 million full-time jobs added. According again to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you guys were looking forward to going under the hood to tell you exactly what's going on and whether or not the recession is canceled. I mean, again, they added 1.2 million full-time jobs in just 1 month. However, the market is not reacting like a lot of people thought it would. Before we begin, Mitch Vexler, happy Friday evening, sir. How are you today?
Good. It's hard to believe it's Friday, but here we are. And NASDAQ, as we speak, is down 235. So, yeah. It's going to be interesting.
It is going to be interesting. And you guys, I'm trying to get you guys out of here quickly because I have daddy-daughter day and we are going out, my daughters and I. And you guys don't forget to share this video, like the video, give us some comments below and let us know exactly what you learned today. According to Market Watch, this came out 1 hour ago, the January slowdown in payroll jobs is first shoe to drop in downward direction for U.S. economy, according to analysts. Talk about a mixed bag here and super confusing. Job growth rose by 143,000 jobs in January, a sharp drop from the upwardly revised 307,000 jobs in December and 261,000 jobs in November. They just keep revising stuff. This economist believes that this is the first bit in a possible string of bad news for the U.S. economy. Sharp drop in employment gains, that's the key word, in January is likely to be the first shoe to drop on a radical policy-induced change in the trajectory of the economy. Uncertainty in the policy environment since November has already had a depressing effect on business investment. Has nothing to do with the inflation. It would be ridiculous to jump to the conclusion that flip-flopping on tariffs with the largest trading partners and on continental energy policies and deporting hundreds of thousands of low-wage workers is neutral for the economy. We're going to go under the hood for the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is the household survey. You guys, again, are going to want to see table A9, which is, again, the household data. Very, very interesting things here. I'll skip that last part. Here's full-time jobs. And what I want to point out, again, under the hood, I don't know why they're not celebrating like crazy here. We gained, you can see, from December, right, which is right here, to January, which is right here, we gained in full-time jobs according to this nonsense. Remember, roughly what, 65% of this is guessing work or 70% is guessing work. Nevertheless, you see here, from 1 month to the other, that's 1.22 million full-time jobs gained. It's time to celebrate, guys. The recession is canceled. Everything is great. We're making more money. The job market is fine. And take a look at this. Part-time jobs lost. Only 167,000. Don't worry, everything is great. Just a little bit of part-time jobs, Mitch. We got over 1 million full-time jobs to start 2025. Really cool. Now, real quick, before I stop my dramatics and we move to the next thing, I wanted to bring your attention to multiple job holders. Now, I want you guys to look at the year over year. So year over year, okay, so from here to here, total amount of multiple job holders has increased 510,000. When the consumer's doing well, that decreases. It doesn't increase because an increase would mean the consumer's struggling. But nevertheless, year over year, multiple job holders, that has increased by 510,000. Take a look at this, you guys. Unemployment has updated. We are now sitting at 4%. How about that? We are starting out the year of 2025 with only a 4% unemployment rate. That's fantastic. But I want to remind you guys that there have been several recessions that have started with the unemployment rate around 4% or lower. Don't let the 4% fool you. You got to go under the hood. We're going to go and see what's going on with the consumer here in a second. But look at dot-com bubble, November of 2000. Unemployment was 3.9 shortly after we went into recession. Even here, you guys, this recession, unemployment was about 3.7. We go back in time here, unemployment was around 4%. You see that, low 4%. And right here, look at this. Unemployment was in the 2s and they went into recession. So the number itself is not an indicator. The trajectory, however, is, and you see the trajectory here going up. That is the indicator, not the actual 4%. Don't forget that. Mitch Vexler, unemployment, once it starts really going out of control, it takes a long time to get a grip on that. Could take a decade, could take a half a decade. So my question to you, sir, with your infinite wisdom, you've been right about a lot of things, Mitch. Is this the last time, say in the next half decade, next 5 years, is this the last time we see a 4% or lower unemployment rate? What do you say, sir?
I don't even believe the 4% to begin with. It's closer to 10%. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has had it wrong for years because they keep changing the formula. And it's not that the Bureau of Labor Statistics idea, the theory behind it, is bad. The problem is they can't get their act together and they're only bringing in a certain amount of input data, and then they're using some sort of formula to put the output, and the output's never been right. So just as a sideline to all of this, do you know that just this week, Google forgo a lease in Fort Worth, Texas of 1 million square feet? So if everything is fine, then why is it that I received another package out of New Jersey for 500 million worth of multifamily going back to the bank through a foreclosure? Then you add in Google. Then we know the statistics of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. None of this stuff is jiving. The math doesn't add up. And then over and above that, what I was writing down, the only thing that matters on the industrial side is a real industrial output as part of the gross domestic product. And nobody can seem to calculate that either. So in combination, I look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics as complete nonsense.
We know it's nonsense. They even acknowledge it's nonsense. But Mitch, I got to get you on the record here, buddy. Okay, just looking at the nonsense data. Last time, and I'm going to say 4 years, all right? Just say the term of the presidency. Is this the last time we see a 4% or lower? Yes or no?
If I was betting, I would say yes. I mean, there's no way to know for sure, but if I was betting, because if the math doesn't stack up, I mean, we're 10% easy right now today.
Well, yeah, if it's fraud, right? If it's fraud and they're going to hide things, then yeah. But I'm going to agree with you. I think that this is the last time in the next 4 years. Let's try to investigate on what's going on with the market and whether or not consumer sentiment is important. The 10-year has absolutely skyrocketed on this news, which it should, right? The 10-year goes up. It tightens up that market a little bit. It tightens up our economy a little bit. The market is absolutely tanking right now with the Dow, and it's not closed yet. It's almost closed. The Dow down 433 points, S&P down 56, and the NASDAQ down 274, with the VIX up 4.26%. That is interesting. And it is because of this. The University of Michigan has just updated consumer sentiment. February coming in at 67.8. That is the index of consumer sentiment. Just to give you guys an idea, February of last year, we were at 76.9. Current economic conditions dropping to 68.7. Again, index of consumer expectations also down to 67.3. I want you guys to look at the month over month change right here, sitting at 4.6%. Current economic conditions sitting at 7.2%, and that is the negative, and negative 2.9%. But look at the year over year change. That is a bigger picture. That is double digit change, with the consumer sentiment sitting at year over year drop of 11.8%. Let's see why consumer sentiment has such a massive change month over month. Consumer sentiment fell for the second straight month, dropping about 5% to reach its lowest reading since July of 2024. The decrease was pervasive, with Republicans, Independents, and Democrats all posting sentiment declines from January, along with consumers across age and wealth groups. Furthermore, all 5 index components deteriorated this month, led by a 12% slide, here it is, in buying conditions for durables, in part due to a perception that it may be too late to avoid the negative impact of tariff policy. That's what they're blaming this on, tariff policy that's not even in effect, okay? Expectations for personal finances sank 6% from last month, again seen across all political affiliations, reaching its lowest value since October of 2023. Many consumers appear worried that high inflation will return within the next year. Interviews for this release concluded on February 4th. Let's read this last part here. This is important. Year ahead inflation expectations jumped up from 3.3% last month to a full percent. That is a huge increase month over month, by the way. A 1% increase month over month is unheard of. So that went from 3.3 to 4.3 this month, the highest reading since November 2023, and marking 2 consecutive months of unusually large increases. Listen to this next thing, guys. This is only the 5th time in 14 years. So again, only the 5th time in 14 years we have seen such a large 1-month rise. So consumers getting hit right between the eyes here. The current reading is now well above the 2.3 to 3% range seen in the last 2 years prior to the pandemic. Long run inflation expectations ticked up from 3.2 last month to 3.3 this month. Long run inflation expectations remain elevated in the 2.2 to 2.6 range. A better view of the spike right here, guys. Here's the inflation expectations. This is surging following the tariff development. So, of course, I'm sure they're not manipulating the data here. It's all because of President Trump. It's all because of the tariffs. But nevertheless, look at that massive spike in expectations. Does the data that we just reviewed that came out today, is it suggesting that consumers are starting to see the problem with the economy?
No, the article is just more propaganda, right? Because the second somebody says, well, it's a political thing and it's a Republican side and all sides are the same. Listen, fraud doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's simply not relevant in the entire story. And what mom and pop know is how much they can afford based on their income. So we just literally were working on this earlier this week. So if you're a multifamily tenant on average, which is the problem with this $500 million portfolio in New Jersey, turns out that the average income is $85,000. Well, that means that they can afford a $1,435 monthly payment in the rent. That's the equivalent of roughly $143,000 in apartment unit value. One apartment, 143 grand. The problem is right now today, for me to build a new unit, I'm 225,000. That's what mom and pop understand. They simply can't pay any more money because they don't have any more money, A. B, give or take 30% plus of the households across the United States are going to go bankrupt and or they're going to lose the roof over their head. And the only difference separating them from bankruptcy is $9,000, of which $7,000 is the real estate tax. That is what mom and pop understand on the single family side and on the multifamily side. So as far as I'm concerned, the article completely meaningless.
Okay. All right. Well, first thing is I've noticed that your eye improvement has definitely improved in this video. So I thank you for that, sir. Now, it also sounds like, you know, what you're saying is mom and pop have already known that a problem has existed for, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. Potentially that data is a bunch of nonsense. So it's not that consumers necessarily are starting to see the problem. What you're saying, Mitch, is that data's nonsense and consumers, being mom and pop, have already known a problem has existed. Is that right, sir?
100%. Yep.
Okay. Now, let's go into something else that's extremely important. And I'm about to show you guys why, which is consumer health, or rather, purchasing power. The first thing I want to point out, and one of the reasons why consumer health and purchasing power is so important, is because when we look here, this is the U.S. personal consumption expenditures, or rather GDP. You guys, 68.64% of GDP is consumer spending. So the health of the consumer is absolutely vital, or at least the fact that they spend. It doesn't matter whether or not they're in debt. We just need, or the economy rather, needs consumers to spend. And that's exactly what they've been doing. When we look under the hood and the health of the consumer, we can't afford houses. One of the core values of being an American is owning our home. Look at this, guys. This is Case Shiller over CPI. This is showing you that we've never had a housing market so out of reach for the everyday American. And the Americans starting to figure that out. Why? Because they're forced. They're forced on the sideline. They've been forced on the sideline. You guys can see here since about 2020. Look at that. It's gotten really out of control after 2020. In other words, we can't even touch the housing market right now. So what are we supposed to feel good about? I want to show you guys something else. This is from the FDIC.gov. So not only can we not purchase a house, we're being lied to and we're being manipulated. Look at this. This is from the FDIC. First of all, I want you guys to know, okay, automated underwriting allows a consumer to go to 56.99% debt to income ratio on FHA loans. All right. So instead of not allowing a lot of people that can't afford a house not to qualify, What has happened is the CFPB and automated underwriting, HUD, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac has allowed people to get houses that they can't afford. Proof is right here. The FDIC says, look at it. I'm going to read this to you guys. What do lenders generally require? Lenders usually require the PITI, which is your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And by the way, you guys, all they're counting on a lot of these surveys is the principal and interest. They're not even counting taxes and insurance, but whatever. So lenders usually require that your PITI or your housing expense be less than or equal to, you ready? Look at that, Mitch. Mitch about to fall out of his seat. 25 to 28%. Qualified mortgages allowed us to go to 38% before they changed that in 2022 and removed debt to income ratio completely from qualified mortgages. So why is it out of reach? Because they are frauding us and they're convincing naive people that they can just buy a house so long as they can, quote unquote, afford it, but they keep changing the definition of affordability as seen right here. Now, here's the other thing, you guys, okay? So not only can we not purchase houses, we are drowning in debt. Look at consumer credit card debt. We're sitting at almost, guys, $1.1 trillion. Credit card debt is some of the absolute worst debt to be in. And consumers right now, which are very important to the economy, are drowning in consumer credit card debt. Let's take a look at this bad boy right here. It's not just credit card debt, okay? It's also car debt. Motor vehicle debt is sitting at $1.566 trillion in vehicle debt. And don't forget this, student loan debt is due, I'm afraid, and that debt is more than consumer credit cards and vehicle debt. That debt is sitting at $1.77 trillion of debt. So we can't get houses. We're being manipulated. We're drowning in debt. And look at this. Me and Mitch always talk about this. Real, which is adjusted for inflation, median household income. You can look at average. It's still down. Look, it's been down since 2019, which means we're making less money. We're drowning in debt. So what does it matter whether or not the Bureau of Labor Statistics says there's 1.22 million more full-time jobs when we're drowning in debt? We're not making any more money. We don't have any money saved, and people are starting to be delinquent, and we're being manipulated. Mitch, just this last question. Why is the health and purchasing power of the consumer so important for both the short-term and long-term health of the economy? Why am I so important, Mitch?
Well, the straight answer is that mom and pop are the economic engine of the United States of America. And over and above that, in reality, it is the Americans that are the economic engine of the world. So if we get sick, as in the United States gets sick due to all this nonsense, i.e. Federal Reserve, well, so does the rest of the world. International Monetary Fund, the European Union, they all go down, including China. So we have a huge problem, but we also have a huge opportunity. The problem right now is that the inflation, as a direct result of the Federal Reserve, as well as what's happening at the local central appraisal districts due to the taxing entities, which are the school districts that own the CADs, that is a massive amount of fraud in the system as well, in addition to the credit card. So what do we have? Well, in the last 5 years, the central appraisal districts across the United States have created $21.25 trillion in overvaluation. And as a direct result of that, in 2024, they stole from mom and pop $450 billion. So add all that on top of what you were talking about with regard to the subprime auto loans, school debts, all these things, as in personal debts from schools. So your education. So all of these things add up. And the bottom line is that mom and pop are tapped out. End of story. There is no more money to be had. So, and that's why you end up with 30% plus. I mean, our numbers show the real number is 37%. So I'm being conservative when I say 30% plus are going to go bankrupt and or lose the roof over their head as a direct result of only being separated from bankruptcy by $9,000, of which $7,000 is real estate tax. The only way to fix this, and we've been working on this for years, and that's why I say this with such veracity, is that you must eliminate the real estate tax. Because if you don't, all these people, and think about this for a minute, you got 143 million households in the United States. If 30% of them file bankruptcy, the ripple effect will be global. And that is the problem. You will end up with 40 plus million homes, households on the market. The economic devastation will just unravel the entire globe. Therefore, this must be fixed. And I sent a memo out just recently that said, We can't find another alternative. And if anybody can, let us know. But we sent that out to some very high-powered people, and we're hoping to get straight answers.
We always hope to get straight answers, Mitch. I have a question for you, and I have to ask this very, very carefully. Okay, now, technical recession. Okay, so I know that the data is manipulated. They can go back and revise data. But my question is going to be regarding a technical recession. And also, just for the viewers, if we really compare the global financial crisis or the big recession, the last big recession we had, to right now, we have a ton of similar events happening. We have a ton of factors that we had back during the global financial crisis. Some of them are worse. And so if I were to ask and I were to explain to you guys in just 4 words, what's the biggest difference from back then in 2008 to right now? And why haven't we gone into recession yet? Again, I can explain that in 4 words. Federal Reserve, how? Inflation. 4 words. That's the biggest difference. If you really look at it, that's really the only difference. The Federal Reserve and their inflation. 4 words. Biggest difference, guys. But my question, Mitch, is technical recession. Okay. When do you think we're going to be entering a technical recession? I'm going to answer this first. I think they're probably going to revise Q4 of 2024. My best guess is we enter recession Q4 of 2024. So we have Q4 of 2024, Q1 of 2025, both negative prints. I think that's when we go into official recession, Q4 of 2024. It's the best I can guess. Again, they revised data. They're lying. They're printing money like crazy. Hard to tell. What do you got, Mitch? Technical recession.
First, I will see your 4 words and raise you 1 word, which is fraud. Then the next issue is with regard to the technical recession idea, the industrial output, which is what it used to be by definition under the CPI, that's crucial. Well, we've had negative industrial growth output going back over 18 months, and that hasn't changed. It hovers, it goes down, it comes back. But the bottom line is it's negative, which means our industrial output is less than it's ever, well, as compared to 2008, right? So the point of the matter is, by old definition of the consumer price index, we are in fact and have been in a recession. The definition is changing. So I saw a report, and we've actually kind of wrote some stuff up, but do you know that that definition has changed 13 times in the last 10 years? Do you know that inflation is taken out? So your food, when you go to the grocery store, isn't even in the calculation. So certain industrial outputs aren't even in the calculation anymore. So the fraud that they're committing, and that's why I said 1 word, fraud.
Give me a date, man. When are we entering that? I know it's been changed like a billion times, but when are we going into technical? When you say technical, when do you think that?
We're there. I mean, we have been. It's complete nonsense. What people are being taught to believe is a fantasy. It isn't real. There's no math back in the
October of 2023, though, right? You sticking with October of 2023?
Well, remember, this is lagging. So October 23 is not, to me, it's long before that. It's almost a year before that, because all these things are lagging. The problem is you can't get your hands on the real information, right? Because we're not the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're not tracking what they should be tracking, which is the amount of industrial jobs, the industrial growth. And like I said, when you've got somebody the size of Google walking away from a 1 million square foot lease, they knew this was coming. Google knew this was coming a quarter ago. It just hit the press today. So these things are lagging, and you've got to take them with a grain of salt, because whatever the government is telling you, they're trying to cover off the damage that they've done, which is the inflation. And inflation, as we've always said, is a fraud. It's created on the back of mom and pop for some nefarious purpose, i.e. keeping the banks going, which is what the Federal Reserve is doing. The fraud at the central appraisal districts is a direct result of the taxing entities, which are the school districts. All these things are connected at the hip, and it all ends up with mom and pop being stripped of their equity and their inability to pay apartment rent, or to pay rent on a house, or to buy and pay for a house, because they're not getting any value. All these things are a choking point. The fraud ends up in mom and pop choking.
And you know what, guys, all of that to tell you that sometimes you can get the absolute craziest, best deals during a recession. And that's why so many people say cash is king. Generally, credit restrictions soar, banks aren't lending as much. That's why you should probably right now, like what I'm doing right now, save your money, rebudget, don't get in any large debt. Cash is king. Generally, the longer that you wait, the better deal that you will get. Be patient, don't use your emotions, and love your life. Redefine what a home actually is. They say home is where the heart is. Other than that, Mitch, I appreciate your time, sir. Have a great weekend. And if you guys are out there investing in real estate or just living your life, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.